Good evening, everyone. Today, we're diving into President Donald Trump's response to what many are calling a major setback from the Supreme Court. The ruling came down earlier this week, striking down his use of emergency powers to enforce widespread tariffs on goods from nearly every country. This decision not only challenges his economic strategy, but also highlights tensions within the conservative wing of the court he helped shape. Let's break it down step by step, looking at the facts, the president's statements, and what this means moving forward. First, a quick recap of the court's decision. In a 6-3 vote, the Supreme Court ruled that Trump overstepped his authority by relying on the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose these tariffs. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing for the majority, emphasized that the Constitution assigns Congress the primary role in setting taxes, including tariffs, to prevent unchecked executive actions. Interestingly, the majority included two of Trump's own appointees, Justices Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, alongside Roberts and the three liberal justices. The dissenters, Justices Brett Kavanaugh, Clarence Thomas, and Samuel Alito, argued that the president should have broader leeway in foreign economic matters. This wasn't just a legal blow. It has real financial implications. Over the past year, these tariffs have generated around $130 billion in revenue, much of it passed on to American businesses and consumers through higher prices. Now, with the ruling, companies could seek refunds potentially totaling tens of billions. Groups like the National Retail Federation are already pushing for a straightforward process, but the administration has signaled it might drag this out in lower courts. The court didn't specify on refunds, leaving that to future litigation, which could create a messy situation for everyone involved. President Trump's reaction was swift and pointed. In a White House press briefing shortly after the decision, he didn't hold back. He described the ruling as deeply disappointing and went further, saying he was absolutely ashamed of certain justices for lacking the courage to support what he sees as essential for the country's interests. He specifically called out the majority as fools and lapdogs influenced by outside forces, claims made without evidence, and even suggested foreign countries were celebrating but wouldn't be for long. It's a stark shift from his earlier praise for the court, like when he thanked Chief Justice Roberts during last year's State of the Union for rulings on immunity. Amid the criticism, Trump announced immediate action. He's invoking Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974 to impose a new 10% tariff across the board on all imports. This provision allows the president to address balance of payments issues with tariffs up to 15%, but it's temporary, capped at 150 days unless Congress extends it. Trump framed this as a great alternative that could even be stronger than the original plan, insisting it would protect American jobs and manufacturing. He claimed the tariffs have already spurred factory construction and promised visible results within a year, despite current economic indicators showing mixed signals. Speaking of the economy, let's look at the broader picture. Recent data shows 2025 GDP growth at about 2.2%, which is solid but slower than the previous year. Imports haven't dropped as much as expected under the tariffs, and while they've boosted government revenue, critics argue they've contributed to inflation climbing toward 3 to 4%. Core PCE inflation, a key measure of consumer costs, came in hotter than anticipated last month, and fourth quarter GDP was around 1.5%. Half of what some administration officials predicted. Trump dismissed these figures, attributing any slowdown to external factors. But the timing of this ruling adds uncertainty just as markets were adjusting. During the press conference, Trump also touched on unrelated frustrations, like the court's handling of past cases, including his ongoing claims about the 2020 election. He extended invitations to the justices for next week's State of the Union address, but added barely, and said he couldn't care less if they showed up, predicting a chilly reception for Roberts. This kind of rhetoric underscores the personal tone of his response, which some analysts see as a rally the base strategy ahead of midterms. Beyond the tariffs, this episode raises questions about executive power. The court applied the major questions doctrine here, limiting the president's ability to use vague laws for big economic changes without clear congressional approval. It's a reminder that even with a conservative majority, the judiciary can push back. For businesses, the new 10% tariff means continued costs. Think higher prices for everything from electronics to clothing. And while Trump says alternatives exist, like other trade statutes, they come with hurdles such as required investigations or time limits, making long-term policy trickier without lawmakers' buy-in. On the international front, allies in Europe and elsewhere welcomed the original ruling, hoping for stability after a year of trade disruptions. But Trump's quick pivot to Section 122 has reignited concerns. Countries like Canada and Mexico, already hit hard, may face renewed negotiations, and global markets dipped slightly in response, though they've stabilized for now. Shifting gears, this isn't happening in a vacuum. The administration has been advancing other policies that tie into this economic vision. For instance, recent EPA moves have relaxed rules on coal plant emissions, allowing more heavy metals like mercury into the air, a reversal of prior environmental protections. Similarly, there's been pushback on pesticide regulations, with the regime endorsing substances like glyphosate despite links to health risks. These steps align with Trump's pro-industry stance, but have drawn criticism for prioritizing business over public health. Adding to the drama, cabinet-level issues continue to simmer. Reports of investigations into personal conduct within departments, like at Labor, highlight internal challenges. And high-profile figures jetting around on taxpayer-funded planes for what some call questionable trips only fuel perceptions of disconnect from everyday Americans struggling with rising costs. All this comes as public sentiment on tariffs remains divided. Polls show a majority of Americans, especially independents and Democrats, view them as harmful to the economy, with 56% in one recent survey saying they increase prices without enough benefits. Republicans are more supportive, but even there, it's not unanimous. As Trump doubles down, it puts GOP lawmakers in a tough spot. Do they back extensions in Congress or risk alienating voters in an election year? In terms of social media, Trump's team has been active, echoing his briefing points. Posts from supporters highlight the disgrace of the ruling and promise stronger measures ahead. It's classic Trump, turning a loss into a fight narrative. But whether this resonates remains to be seen. Wrapping up, this ruling and Trump's response mark a pivotal moment. It curbs presidential overreach on trade, forces a reliance on Congress, and could lead to billions in refunds if courts side with businesses. Yet, with the new 10% tariff in play, the trade wars aren't over. We'll be watching how this unfolds, especially at the State of the Union. If you're following along, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're closing in on our next milestone, and your support keeps us delivering these breakdowns. Thanks for tuning in, and stay informed.